Alright, welcome to Imperial Advisor episode 23. We are Dan and Owen this week, so Hatamoto-less, unfortunately, but we've got Andy back, so way. So yeah, we've quite a bit actually. We talked on the last show about how there'd been a sort of dearth of news, and then, as is traditional, as soon as our show goes out, waves and waves of news comes out on a Monday night. So yeah, aside from the Paris Kotei, there was quite a few sort of various announcements around from the Phoenix previews to some of the stuff from Gamma that came out, and interviews with some of the designers. So there's a good bit of stuff to talk about. So in the meantime, for you guys, have you been, we sort of talked last week, we kind of had a little bit of a FFG break. Have you guys been still on hiatus, or have you been sort of starting to think about what the future holds for Phoenix packs, or where are you guys L5 wise? Justin?
Yeah, haven't been playing a huge amount, but I've been, kind of spending a bit of time just thinking about potential directions for Phoenix once the pack comes out. And I suppose we'll get to that in a couple of weeks when we do a full review of the pack, which should be just before it launches. But yeah, there seem to be many new avenues for exploration with the Phoenix, which I'm really looking forward to. So yeah.
Cool. Baz?
Playing a few more games. Obviously, we did a lot of stuff with the Paris Kotei, so we were watching that. Just back from the tournament, our local store had their Stronghold tournament, so actually got to play some games, which was great. Looking forward. We're beginning to accumulate the previews that we have so far, and I'm going to be pestering Justin over the next few weeks about doing the write-ups to actually work our way through them.
And how did the Stronghold tournament go?
It went well. So in the end, we played 4 rounds, and I went 3-1. In the end, I lost to Pierre. So it is a crab stronghold, the Dublin store. But yeah, some good games. And this time he went through 2 scorpions, so he's had some more practice and made some changes. He's learned from his mistakes, and he'll be ready for next time.
Excellent. And Andy, how have you been?
I've been good. Not playing much L5R, I'll have to admit. I think even less than I usually play, which is not a huge amount. My buddy Alex Felton, he's been my stalwart companion in playing games, and he's been off on vacation or holidays or just working hard. So I haven't been gearing up towards his wedding, I think. So I haven't really been able to play much. Not playing much on Jigoku either, and yeah, I've been very bad at attending the local anything in the local scene. So I guess I'm a horrible person and and a terrible content provider for the game.
That's appalling. Well, I mean, let's blame Alex though, right?
I'm blaming Alex. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Solid.
What is the local scene like around Berlin?
I'd love to be able to tell you, but I actually haven't attended. I haven't attended anything. Alex has been my conduit basically to what's going on. He's had his finger on the pulse way more than I have. So the only thing I know is that there are some tournaments being run. I think there's a tournament every Saturday morning or Sunday morning. And yeah, it's a fairly small scene, but I think we have some pretty successful players. One of them even was it Stefan, I think, made the, or was it I could be doing him an injustice here. Let me see. I'm looking at the list now. One of the players made it to the second day in France. So I'll just find his name. Robert Haustein. So Robert made it to he's one of the local crab players, I think, and he made it to came in third on the 1B, Paris 1B qualifier. So cool. He's pretty good. Some pretty good players here.
Yeah. All right, so maybe let's dive into Paris a little bit. So, Baz, maybe start with you, because you've sort of compiled a bit of a pretty in-depth article just going through results, win rates. I know Jakob kind of helped out with that and added a few comments as well. What's kind of your takeaway from that?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. We've had 3 tournaments in the full Imperial cycle. So we had the PAX South, where essentially Frotop unveiled his Scorpion deck for the first time. We then had Dublin, where we weren't really ready for it. I know people were aware of the deck, and we could see people had actually put meta cards into it, but hadn't had the practice against it. And the more we kind of look and try unravel the Scorpion deck, we realize that it's really a playstyle matchup. But Paris was a really good opportunity for that to be taken down, and I think it's evident. You can see that some clans were doing a lot better than Scorpion than they had been beforehand. Especially the Crane, which I'm super interested in. If you look at the Crane, I think they got 6 into the top 32, maybe even the top 16. They got like a really big number in the final rounds, but they all got cut out by non-Scorpion. They did not play Scorpion. The only one who played a Scorpion beat that Scorpion, and the rest of them got cut out by Phoenix or Dragon or Crab or whatever else they had to. I really wonder if if they'd all been paired against the Scorpions, would they basically have cleared Scorpion out of that top bracket? That said, it does look like they don't have great win rates across the rest of the board. So Scorpion have been the deck to beat. People clearly have been working at it, and just didn't quite pip it out. From talking to some of the Irish guys who went, they did feel that the standard at Paris was a little bit higher than it was in Cork, which is not unsurprising considering it was a little bit of a smaller tournament, although not too much smaller in Cork. But yeah, it was interesting. I'm disappointed that Crab or Dragon didn't go all the way in the end. So we had 2 of them. We had 2 non-Scorpions in the top 4. But yeah, it was good. And I'm delighted to see that Pierre made it to 2nd place. Having a local player do so well is always great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we talked about this on the last show, and we sort of kind of gave a few predictions, and I think we sort of suggested that Scorpion may still pull through and win it, and we might see a little bit of Chicken Little skies falling reaction from the community, but I haven't seen a lot of that actually. What do you take from that, Andy, in terms of are you worried about the Scorpion dominance, or do you think it's a temporary thing?
No, I don't think. Well, the nature of card games is there are ups and downs, right? For every clan and every top dog. So Scorpion currently has their moment in the sun, and it's going to be because of the nature. That's a lot of noise in the background there, Baz.
Yeah, sorry, my wife's sewing. I'll put it on mute.
Yeah, it's the nature of card games, and I think because of the nature of the release cycle that FFG are doing, that moment in the sun is going to be a little bit protracted because there's just not enough new cards coming into the environment to shift that top dog off. So, and I don't think there's enough flex right now in the card pool for someone to magically just discover the silver bullet or answer. So you're going to see Scorpion on top for a little longer, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either. But the good sign is that, and I think Baz also pointed this out in his article on Imperial Advisor, the win rates, the overall win rates against each clan is dropping slightly. I mean, it's not in the 60s as it was in Cork. It's down into the 50s for most. And you can also see like there are some that are getting very, very close to 50-50 on Scorpion. It's pretty interesting. So I think Scorpion are still super powerful. I think the meta is shifting to try and cater for that. And like we saw, like Baz was saying as well, you see Crane, a lot of Crane qualifying. People see maybe Crane as the answer. It's just unfortunate that not very many Crane players got to meet the Scorpion players, like you said. Then we would have had a very interesting mix in the top 4, possibly, if there's a Crane player in there. But it just says that most of the environment is balanced, aside from the 2 outliers, which are Unicorn and Scorpion. And actually, I've got to say, really, really I'm very bummed out about the Lion results from the Kotei as well. So the Lion results have been pretty poor, and I don't think it was because the players are poor. I think it was like a fairly high quality player pool in general, but maybe Lion just are a bit one dimensional at this point in time.
We were pretty hopeful about the Lion as well. We were thinking that maybe it was the Lion would have been able to take down Scorpion last time.
At least I was.
Didn't happen. No, I was right there too. Yeah.
There were quite low player numbers I noticed from Lion though. At least on the first day, Lion was notably behind in sort of just player count.
But if you see the qualification rate on the first day for Lions, it's actually it's pretty decent. It was 10, I think it was 10% or something. But it was pretty good. Even for such a low representation. And day one, like 1B, they're right in line with everybody else. So,
Justin, what's your take from the results and the Scorpion continued dominance? Is that maybe not a surprise, but where do you think?
No, not really. Yeah, I mean, I think we expected to see Scorpion pegged back a little bit, but we just weren't sure whether they would be pegged back enough, and clearly they haven't been pegged back enough. But it does. I mean, in general, the matchups seem to have flattened out a little bit. They're not quite as extreme as they were. So, yeah, I think we have our clear top two clans in Scorpion, then Crab, and then you have. Yeah, the probably Dragon, Crane, Lion, Phoenix scrapping it out in the next tier, or the next tier down, and then Unicorn occupying the bottom tier again. It's I guess kind of more or less what we expected. So I don't know. New cards coming soon. Things might change.
And so I guess one of the stories that did pop up pretty strongly out of the tournament, at least on sort of social media and stuff, was there was an error made and the stream picked it up, and I think then the players then had a chat about it and resulted in one player getting a game loss, or I guess conceding, because it was pretty critical. I know Pierre was involved in that. Baz, have you sort of spoken to him and got sort of the inside line on what happened?
Yeah, so his was the second occurrence. The first occurrence happened, I mean, I think there actually may have been a few, but the first notable one happened the day before in the qualification rounds with Samuel, who is the Shogun. And basically something had happened during the game. It was just missed. Essentially, there was a 10-minute conflict. And at the start of it, he used Fertile Fields, drew his card, I think it was. And then later on, 5-8 minutes later, he was like, okay, I'll draw another card with Fertile Fields, not realizing he hadn't used it before. No one at the table spotted it, but it was streamed. And then the stream caught it, sent the details on to whoever they could. But on the ground, they didn't manage to pick it up until after the game. So I think they kind of sat through it, discussed it, and ended up giving him a game loss. Because at that point, it was in the Swiss, and then that happened. Then the game was with Heinzel and Pierre. So Heinzel is one of the guys on the Discord, and he was playing Scorpion. It was a really unfortunate thing. Like, looking back over it, I was watching it and I never noticed it myself. And looking back over it, like, it was clearly just a mistake that happened. Essentially, what happened was Pierre won a void conflict, removed one fate off of I think it was an illusionist was the character. So it's the one that can remove status tokens. Soci-illusionist, I think it is. But during the cleanup phase, it was a little bit messy, and he basically didn't discard it. So I think at the start of the turn, he might have thought, well, it's going to stick around for 2 turns. At the end of the turn, he kind of missed it. I mean, it's very, very easy to do. Unfortunately, in that next turn, that character removed an honored status token, won a province unopposed, broke a province, and it was a fire province. So essentially, there was a 3-point honor swing and a province destroyed just because of that one thing. And then, it was a pretty tight game. I just have a quick like Heinzel posted some quick mentions about it himself. As far as I know, they basically brought them over and got them to have a look at it afterwards. I don't know if Heinzel actually conceded or was given the option to concede, so I'm not entirely sure what it was. But it was a really high level game. You know, it happened and it was a really big impact. So I know Pierre was saying to me today that, you know, if it had been smaller, he would have taken the loss. It wouldn't have made much of a difference to him. But with a 3-point honor swing and a province broken, that's pretty unfortunate. Now, I don't know what you do in a situation like that. So, I mean, it was active judged, but I can understand why a judge didn't spot that. They might have been focusing on a lot of other things. I understand why the players missed it. And, you know, I think it ended up putting, through no fault of anyone, putting the organizer in a really, really difficult position. And essentially what they did was they had a look at the previous ruling and then just stuck to that. So there was no belief of malice. It wasn't considered to be cheating or anything like that. It was a misplay that they caught afterwards, and the only real way that they had to fix the game state was to give a game loss, and it was a game loss. And people have talked about DQ or something like that, but it was just a game loss. Unfortunately, when you're talking about a game loss in the single limbs,
yeah.
Anyway, I think it was rough for pretty much everyone. I know Pierre would have preferred to have had a clean game where he won and went through on that, rather than getting the win after losing. And like he said to me, that after he'd lost that game, he was pretty happy with how far he'd got and how far he'd done. I mean, to top 4 at a massive tournament like that is a massive achievement. So yeah, that was a bit weird. And I know there's been a lot of talk back and forth on some of the L5R forums and Facebook group. At the end of the day, we just need to. Hopefully, they'll be able to work on some tournament approach. Like the idea of bringing warnings in is a pretty good one. It will require a little bit more work on FFG's part. I'm not sure if they're going to go down that route. Yeah, it happened.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Justin, Andy, on sort of, I guess, that issue in general? Because I mean, it's obviously not isolated. That I mean, I think it's one of the reasons judges and tournament organizers can be a bit reluctant to stream games, because they know if you stream games, players are going to make errors. Picking a game as complex as L5R, there's so many decision makes, so many sort of trigger points. We've seen in so many games, and you got Justin, Baz, you've played on stream, Andy, you've commentated, to tournaments. So, is there any easy solution to the problem, or what steps could we take to maybe sort of improve it for players and viewers, I suppose?
Well, I think easy number one is turn off Twitch chat. So. You're like, I had this conversation, or well, I tried to have this conversation. It's not really much of a dialogue when you go on the Facebook group, L5R group, but there was some dialogue. And basically what people were saying was, oh, you can't stream. Oh, maybe have a judge sit with the stream and watch the comments. Maybe have, the streamers or the commentators pick up on these things and report, or have a radio that they radio into the table, the active judge at the table. And my argument against all this is just that this is just bananas. This is just absolute bananas, because always and ever, like, what the people are seeing on the stream is at least 30 seconds behind reality. And in actual fact, it's probably more like 90 seconds. 90 seconds is a lot of time, especially in those games. And this is a game that is really comes down to time. So 90 seconds is something where a judge will probably prod players after about 20 or 30 seconds of thinking to change the game state, to do something, to actually make some sort of input or impact onto the game. So immediately, as soon as something happens, there's no way the stream is going to catch it in time. And then to, like, after the fact, like a posteriori, just shoehorn in some sort of ruling and reset the game state based on what somebody may or may not have interpreted correctly by watching a stream is just, it's just not the way things should go. Like having access to the stream is not a right. I'm sorry, this could also be controversial, but it's not a right that people have to have a stream provided for all of these events. People do this because they volunteer, because they set up the rigs themselves, because they like the game and they like commentating. I know I like commentating, and that's why I do it, and that's why. But I wouldn't want to do it if it's going to cause so much controversy and actually going to upset players and upset judges, because the judges are mostly my friends. I don't want to upset them, and I don't want to upset any of the players either, because most of the players are going to be my friends too. So like, it's not good for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the people commentating are, they're just trying to. They're trying to help, because they're trying to say, hey, there's been error. What we don't know is how many, false positives would be in there as well with some sort of situation. Like, for every time that the stream is right and that something was missed, how often did they just not see something, or you get a very incomplete picture from a stream than you do face to face when you hear the conversation.
Absolutely. And the thing is, one last thing, just my final point on this is just going to be, the stream is there to provide entertainment. It's not there for anything other than that. It's to provide context, to provide some insight into the minds of the players, into the way they're playing, a description of the cards, because sometimes it's actually hard to see, and a description of the game state and some sort of analysis on how, and to provide maybe an interview with the two players afterwards. And that's it. It's an entertainment thing. It's not there as an active judging tool. It's not meant to be. The fact that you have interaction with the streamers and with the content that's being produced is honestly a luxury.
Do you think that channel of feedback should be completely removed? That if a stream does genuinely pick up something and it's checked, that, I mean, do you just remove that channel of feedback to judges or players, or because it's going to get back eventually, right?
In my opinion, it's not a channel at all. So it's not even a channel to begin with. There is no way in hell you should be taking anything from the stream and relaying that back to the game, because even the commentators are delayed. Like, even us sitting in the arena are delayed at seeing this stuff. So there's no way you can do it in a fair way.
Justin, any thoughts on this issue of judging and streaming and how the two sort of interact?
Yeah, it's a thorny problem, all right. I mean, I suppose one of the big things that that players and indeed the companies are invested in is the integrity of the game, and to a certain extent, streaming or kind of reported or problems reported via streaming are a good thing, because they do they do increase or maintain a top flight integrity for the game. On the other hand, as Andy points out, there are a whole lot of practical problems, specifically with the idea of false positives, because if somebody spots something that's incorrect, and this information gets relayed to the table, and then everything has to be, the game has to be rewound, things have to be checked, and all of a sudden you find out that actually mistakes weren't made at all. That's an untenable situation for tournament play. It can't be done. It shouldn't be done. On the other hand, it hasn't been an issue so far, I don't think, in Five Rings, but certainly in X-Wing. There have been some fairly infamous examples of, absolutely straight, incontrovertible cheating taking place on the tables, which has been caught by streams. Now, apart from calling into question the IQ of the cheaters involved, episodes like that are very important, because they do point out potential problem players within the environment, or within the tournament community. So it's a difficult position for organizers, for judges, for the company involved, and for the players. Everybody wants the game to be played and adjudicated at the very highest level possible, but at the same time, the people involved are human. Mistakes are going to be made, things are going to be missed. So Owen's not here. I'm sure Owen would have an awful lot to say on this subject.
Yeah.
But as mentioned before, I think you probably need a system of warnings, or at least you need some means of tracking behavior across multiple tournaments. Now, for the most part, the the issues with the social illusionist who, when went on a one-person rampage across the battlefield and was responsible for winning a game. I mean, things like that. Very often, the players will sort it out between themselves. Generally, I think the FFG communities and the Five Rings communities, they're like, by and large, everybody is incredibly sportsmanlike. And if you are presented with a situation where you have made a mistake inadvertently, and that mistake has completely snowballed the game and won it for you, most people would have very little problem in just going, oh dear, that's awful, and just conceding the game. I mean, it doesn't feel great. It's not a great feeling, but at the same time, doing the honorable thing, I think, is quite important for for the majority of FFG game players, and for just players of this game in particular, because it's such a big in-setting quality that's just important. So a lot of the times, I think things can be fixed between the players in situations like this. That's not ideal, because that takes place outside an objective framework. But sometimes, I mean, these are human situations, and sometimes you need to find a slightly more human solution to the issue. So while I would certainly advocate for warnings and for tracking of information across tournaments and games, so that if there is a potentially problematic player in the community, that player can be watched and their behavior hopefully curbed or corrected. That for the most part, you just have to let things play out as they normally would, or as they would without access to the stream. That results, the game stands as called, results stand as called. It's not I mean, there's no perfect solution to this one, I don't think. But I think if FFG, I suppose it all comes down to FFG and how they view the tournament scene and what they want to achieve through tournaments with Five Rings. And maybe a more robust tracking system is what's required. I don't know, but for the time being, I think you just leave it up to the judges, the tournament organizers, and the players, and do the best you can within the rules and guidelines that are provided. Not a particularly satisfying answer. Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, I don't think there is a satisfying answer to this. But Andy, rock on.
I gotta say, I sympathize a lot with Alex Watkins, who probably had to make the final call on both of those game losses, because I mean, it's just he's put in such a difficult situation, and he's a great guy. I mean, you think about like the tournaments that he doesn't just organize for L5R. He does it for what, like 2 or 3 other games as well, at least X-Wing as well, and the guys just run all over Europe basically organizing tournaments, and to have to make these kind of shitty calls, it doesn't make anybody feel good. I don't think it makes him feel good to give players game losses. I don't think it feels good for the players. Probably best if, like you guys say, a warning system is introduced, and that's the best thing we could possibly do.
Now that warning system is a logistics issue for FFG, and we know, well, to be generous to them, I think they're overworked and underpaid, and are trying to make the best that they can with the resources they have that are quite minimal. I have heard a couple of people make the point that maybe if they're organizing, 400 people tournaments, they should consider themselves a tournament organizing company, which they don't. Like FFG consider themselves to be a games company, and those games are sometimes used in tournaments.
Now, interestingly enough, with the whole episode about streaming coming up and how the stream affects the game and how it affects the rulings that are made, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes forward, because I think Asmodee or FFG are officially providing the stream for the UK Games Expo. So they will have their own setup, they will have their own streamers, their own commentators. I potentially might be one of them. And we will see exactly how they want the thing to happen. Do they actually want us to to make these kinds of things? Do they want to take the information from the stream? Maybe not. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't tell us anything about it, and they just let us entertain, as I think is the intention.
Oh, I know from talking to John that from the judges' side of things, if no games were streamed ever, that would be the best scenario. Because anytime a game is streamed, if there's any mistakes on it, it makes the entire tournament look bad. As the organizers, they really need to put a judge there just to watch that single game, rather than what they'd like to be doing, which is watching over 20 games, because a lot of the time the judges are understaffed and trying to keep track of a massive player base. But the reality is, we need streams to keep happening. We want this game to grow. We want this game to succeed. And under the current market, you need to have streams where you can watch high-level players play the game, where you can spend your weekends, sticking on the TV and watching top-level players playing, having some great commentary from yourselves. I have to admit, I love the 2v, listening to the 2v talk, but that you can just sit back, and it's for people who are fans of the game, it's really entertaining. And you can, FFG have done some fantastic streams before. I know they got some of the Team Covenant guys in to do some of the Netrunner, and I spent entire weekends with just on the background, watching it, listening to it, seeing what the decks are, checking it up online afterwards, and that really got my enthusiasm going and kind of keeps me pumped for the game. And those are the things that I really live for, and I think that's a great way of keeping the player base engaged, keeping the player base interested, especially when you consider that for the last month, the only real activity for Alpha 4 has been streams from our updates from the last 3 tournaments. It is an incredibly good thing for the game and for FFG, and it's something we definitely want to keep going. As someone who picked up the wrong ring in a streamed game, I understand how easy it is to make these mistakes. And during those tournaments, I made worse mistakes in other games where we realized it and the 2 players between us worked it out and went on. But if that had happened on a stream, it could have been, there could have been uproar. But just because it was 2 people working through it, we were able to resolve it and move on, thank God. But yeah, I know people have said that maybe FFG will look at removing streams, and I don't think they ever will, because it's too important. And yeah, I think if you're on a live game, just stop making mistakes.
Well, you just say
just play,
no pressure.
God.
Yeah. Just make sure you draw from those spyglasses.
Oh, thanks, Andy. Thanks. How many times did I miss that?
Just twice. It's all right. The stream caught it.
Cola assures me he's destroyed all the evidence.
I don't know why I would have had the evidence, but sure, great. Because that was all on Jack's computer.
I just wanted to make you feel better.
Yeah.
And I guess one last question. Maybe you don't know the answer before we, move on from Paris. Did we get a look at many of the sort of deck lists from the top 16 and the and beyond? And was there any sort of interesting refinements on what we've seen from previous tournaments?
So the guys at Paris had all of the second day's deck lists up for day 2. They did a fantastic job. I'm as someone who did that for the Kotei, and it took me forever. I'm really, really impressed on how they do it. I suspect that one of the reasons they did it is because if half of your deck lists are in French and you have to give them to the other player to try work out what's going on, you're going to struggle. So, for example, Pierre is he's living in Ireland, but he's a French player. Versus Jakob, who is Polish in the final. Like, if Jakob had competed his in Polish and Pierre completed his in French, good luck. Do you have any idea what's going on? I don't. A lot of the Scorpion decks were kind of standard. There have been some critiques of some of the Dragon decks, in that there were some non-standard things, but Dragon is kind of weird in that Dragon are often considered to have just one specific deck, and if you vary from that deck even a little bit, people are kind of raising eyebrows, despite the fact that that deck can change a little bit from month to month. So I'm not too shocked by that. Yeah, the Crane decks really interested me, mostly because some were Dragon, some were Scorpion. So there was a kind of a good split between them. Is there anything that we can really pull out of these?
I think you mentioned in your article about Censure making it into a lot of Scorpion decks.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, Censure has started seeing play in the Scorpion decks. I'm not sure why. I think it might be because a lot of decks have started playing Censure to try deal with the Scorpion decks. So the Scorpion are having to spend a lot more time to take the favor. Because they have a character that when they play, they grab the favor. It's actually a lot more consistent for them, and it gives them one more cancel that they can pull into play, which means that Censure is now starting to fall out of favor again in the decks that are trying to beat Scorpion, which is super weird. So yeah, you're kind of seeing meta shifts like that, which are interesting. Phoenix. I'm quite hopeful with, because Phoenix had a number. Again, they had either Dragon or Line Splash, I think it was, which are pretty typical, but it means that they were able to go in two different directions. And one of the big things for me was two of the Phoenix decks made it into the top 8, which was great. But the big difference between them is one of them didn't play any of the 5-cost characters at all, and instead went for a lower spread, which I think is probably a good idea in the Fate Worse Than Death meta, especially as those two characters can be vulnerable to Dishonor, although I guess Kotei's protected from Ring of Fire. But given that they're going to get a big load of cards soon, and they're already able to kind of build in two different directions, either a wide or a tall. I think it's going to be super interesting working through the new Phoenix options once they come out. I don't know. There's probably more work that could be done. I have to admit, I didn't take too much of a deep dive into the deck list. The fact that we have all 38, I think, is absolutely fantastic.
Cool.
Brian Mulcahy made the top 32. You'll hear
come on, Brian.
Name. You'll hear that name again.
Yeah.
Playing Scorpion rather than classical Crab, like I would have expected.
Ooh, Brian, what?
But one of the things that I make note of during the comments is over in Europe, we've had 3 big tournaments so far. We've had Madrid, we've had Cork, and we've had Paris. And you can see players appearing in both of those, in the top 32 and the top 16 of both of those. So these are very large tournaments, and you are seeing people consistently place. And I think those are the people that are playing games regularly and are getting the practice in, are not taking the breaks like I know I am, and are just absolutely focused on winning games. So we're going to see a lot of those names in the future, and hopefully we'll be seeing them at Worlds. And we'll be seeing a second year in a row with a European Shogun.
All right. Cool. So I think we can wrap up Paris. Thanks to Jacob, and Pierre, and also Baz for all the work sort of getting that stuff together. So there's been a few bits of news, I guess. We can start maybe with some of the Phoenix bits. So we'll probably won't do a full pack review tonight. We'll save that for
when we have the cards.
When we have all the cards, and we can just do them en masse. But maybe we could give a quick sort of overview. We know it's we've got a date now, so April 5th, which makes it legal for Birmingham, as I understand. Maybe Justin, do you want to start with kind of what you've seen and just sort of some brief thoughts on what you're excited about?
Yeah. Right. Well, starting with the stronghold, we have a completely different stronghold and a completely different approach to how the Phoenix is going to play. So The old stronghold, or the Phoenix's original stronghold, which started out as arguably and probably the worst stronghold in the game, is now one of the strongest in the game because it gives you control. It gives you huge control over the favor, and the favor's become a very, very important mechanic. Phoenix can leverage the favor better than many clans can. So the new stronghold, the spell-based stronghold, is going to have to be really quite strong, I think, to oust Isawa Moriseido. But with that said, there are signs that it may be capable of doing that. I think there are going to be some fairly profound changes in how Phoenix approach the game, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see Phoenix as the next Scorpion-style deck, where Phoenix will be able to play a deck that has up to 10 conflict characters, and passes an awful lot first in Dynasty phase. They've got a lot of really interesting economy options. I think there are going to be some radically different Phoenix decks coming out of this pack. Really, completely different to what we've seen Phoenix do before. So from that point of view, I'm really excited to kind of ready to just to get the cards and start making decks and testing things. Big changes coming for the Phoenix clan, I think.
All right. Andy, what were your thoughts? There was a few neutral cards, and there was a crane card and another one that was sort of just
a unicorn.
A unicorn, that's the one.
Yeah. So I would say that actually I'm pretty happy with the unaligned cards that we've seen. So the two camis, they definitely bring interesting stuff to the table. I think it's especially in Phoenix that are going to take advantage of cards like that. But also, like any Scorpions seem to be able to take pretty good advantage of them too. Be interesting to see what Walking the Way eventually does, because it has been spoiled as like something that will have some text on it eventually when we get to see it. But I like the Unicorn card. I think he's understated because Unicorn do need help. He's got a great ability, understated. And then the Doji is, that's just a pretty nice ability. But now we're getting into like reviewing the cards, so
yeah.
I don't want to go too deep into it, but it's nice. Like the online stuff, it's nice to see that there are some unique characters coming out for probably each of the clans, I would assume. Or will all clans be represented in this box?
At the end, there will be one of each. Yeah. So we've seen Crab.
One card for...
Yeah, we've seen Crab, Dragon, Scorpion, Crane, and Unicorn. So who does it leave? 1, 2, 3.
Lion.
Just 3
Lion.
more.
Yeah,
Lion,
we just.
Oh, sorry. There'll be Phoenix as well, obviously.
Yeah, there will be Phoenix.
Lots of Phoenix. Yeah.
Baz, any sort of thoughts on cards we've seen?
They look cool. They look interesting. All of the non-Phoenix cards have some way of messing with the Phoenix's stuff, which is pretty cool. Those two neutrals are super interesting. Being able to trigger rings without winning rings, very cool. I'm really interested in finally getting the last few so we can see what that Phoenix splash is going to look like. Because for the rest of the clans, the first thing we need to try is we need to break out the support of the Phoenix and see what it's like playing without any of the Keeper Secret cards and instead with just a bucket load of Phoenix cards. I'm not sure how that's going to look yet. Monks and Monk support, because it's present in some of the Phoenix cards, may actually work really well for Dragon. So Kaito Kosori is that Air Shigenja Monk that's already been spoiled. And you already have the Keeper of the Temple, or the conflict character that you can drop into play, the 1/1, which is super awesome already. So yeah, there might be some fun things there. Obviously, we still have a few more cards to get. I think we've seen about 20. I think there's maybe 25 in total. So we're very close to seeing the full set. But yeah, that's one of the first things I'm going to be working on. I'm going to be seeing what we can see out of the existing card pool for Phoenix and what we can see out of the new card pool from this pack that is going to be able to slot into those existing clan decks and make them stronger. Because if it can, maybe those decks have a shot. If it doesn't, we're basically going to be taken along where we are right now, which, is fine, but we're not up at that Scorpion and soon to be Phoenix level, and we're going to have to work for it a little bit harder than everybody else.
Fair enough. So yeah, I guess there was a few other bits and bobs. There was so I didn't really see a lot of the context behind the sort of Gamma organized play presentation. I just saw that sort of slide of aspirational competition. Does anyone know a little bit more about the context for this presentation and
So Gamma are the Games Manufacturers Association. So it is basically a trade show run by all the different games companies where they're dealing with each other, and they're dealing with stores. So they did have a couple of presentations. Asmodee had a presentation, FFG had a presentation, and later in the evening there was the organized play for them gave a presentation. So this is just the companies talking to each other, and mostly talking to the stores and saying, look, this is what's coming out, this is something that's going to be exciting, this is something coming up. What we're looking at here, they did talk about some of the existing things. So they talked about how the Phoenix pack is due to come out soon, how after the Phoenix pack comes out that we're going to see the previews for the next cycle, and they're going to talk about the cycle release. And actually the Art of Warcast, another podcast we're checking out, went into a little bit more detail on this. But they were speculating that because they were saying the release cycle, that maybe we'll be looking at, another 6 and 6, or a different way of doing it than the kind of standard models, which could be cool. We'll see what happens with that. But this piece of news about the Elemental Championship kits was brand new to this particular one. Essentially, the details are relatively light from what we know, but it is going to be another set of store-led events. So L5R has separated from the normal model that you have in the other FFG games. With the other FFG games, you play in your local stores. Then if you are good at the stores, you get an invite to your regionals, or you get a buy in your first one or something like that, and then the regionals cycle up. So it's a tiered level. But with Alpha Void, they've got a different direction where you've got the Koteis and you've got the World Championships. It looks like they're working on a store level style of event with bigger price support, where you will get a seat at Worlds if you succeed from the store, and a lot more support for the stores to kind of run these things. I'm expecting that it's going to be a little bit more expensive for the stores than the current packs that they have, but for the players it means that we're going to get more events, higher level price support presumably, and a little bit more of a competitive environment at the store level, which all sounds very cool.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Justin, Andy?
Yeah, I think the Elemental Championships are arguably the last missing piece really for L5R organized play. They really desperately did need some kind of competitive store level championship. The Koteis are fantastic events and fantastic marquee events, which feed directly into, certainly Grand Koteis feed directly into Worlds. But having another level of tournament that encourages game stores to run competitive events and for people to travel between game stores it's a fantastic addition. Like the Koteis aren't really game store events, so that entire element is missing at the moment. And while we do have things like the spring kits or like the quarterly kits or whatever that they're doing, something like this with important tangible prizes is going to encourage an awful lot more people to play and travel, which is great. So.
Yeah, because I think for a lot of people, real life doesn't tend to allow them to dedicate weekends solely to playing card games. Often in places you have to travel pretty seriously to get to. I saw there was a bit of talk about that. It was mentioned that it might be quite a few months after the Phoenix pack till we get the next pack. Would that worry you if that's the case, Andy?
A little bit. I mean, they set a weird precedent at the beginning. They were going to give us what was it, 1 pack a month for 6 months, and then they gave us 1 pack a week for 6 weeks or something like that. I can't remember what the actual time frame was, but they compressed it a lot, and then gave us a long lead time until this Phoenix pack. And I'm not sure the player base has been super jazzed about that. I don't hear a lot of positive things about the lack of card injection into the game, or the continuous card injection into the game being a bit too slow on its pace. So I would say if we're looking at a month is a fine amount of time. 2 to 3 months, I think you're then really pushing it. The player base won't break. They've got a bit of bend to them, obviously, but you're taking a gamble that the fall off is going to get critical. So the fall off from this game is going to be the thing that actually, like, fall off from any game is the thing that actually drives it into its death phase. So when the fall off is at a high enough rate because you're not injecting content into it, when it hits its death phase, it's dead and it's never coming back unless you do a massive investment into it again. So I'd like to see them invest in, trying to bring out the content a little bit more frequently, maybe 45 days as opposed to 60 days, maybe 30. I think 30 days is a good enough turnaround time for a company like FFG. But I don't know all the ins and outs of it.
Fair enough. Okay. And then one of the other things we saw was a piece with the designers, with Brad and Tyler. Was there any sort of highlights for you guys?
Oh yes.
And did you wanna start?
The guys are laughing because we brought this up. I brought this up just a bit before the stream started, but I think there was a little bit of. I can understand a designer defending their own design and defending the game that they've worked so hard on, but I think there's a slight correction that could be made to the interpretation of Unicorn. I think it would have been a bit more endearing to just openly sort of say that, look, we know that Unicorn are a bit underpowered, and it's on us. This one's on us, guys, but we're working to fix it, or something along those lines. Not putting it on the player base and saying it's a puzzle that you guys just haven't cracked yet, because that's what it felt like. That's what it felt like for me anyway. And I'm like, that's maybe not that accurate.
Yeah, it seemed a little harsh to the Unicorn players, and maybe that was just sort of kind of how it came out rather than how it was intended. Justin, any thoughts on that, or sort of other stuff from the designer piece?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they were certainly talking the game up and being very, very enthusiastic, and I agree that that's absolutely important, and it's it's a requirement of the business. But at the same time, as we've seen before in other games, actually even X-Wing specifically, that when mistakes are made, it does behoove the designers to just own up to it. The player base isn't it's not a baying pack of mad dogs. People obviously in general there are isolated pockets. But yeah, I mean, people are by and large really, really understanding, and game design is incredibly hard. It's underpaid, so you end up with people who are really following a vocation to provide entertainment, entertainment quality for us. So, yeah, it's opening, just a more open and more honest dialogue is really refreshing, and I can completely understand. I can completely understand why they're kind of talking things up and papering over the cracks a little bit, but it's one of those things. I think in general, the game playing population is vastly more educated now about the process of game design than it ever was. Again, thanks to the likes of Mark Rosewater, for example, who's produced produced articles for years about the ins and outs of game design and how they mess up and the mistakes they make, and the reasons they made those mistakes, which were perfectly understandable in hindsight, which were perfectly understandable at the time, but in hindsight, the mistakes seemed kind of a little less obvious than they maybe should have been. But it's just in general, like you take a look across most media, like when you're talking like movies or TV, like people are a lot more educated these days. So as I said, a bit more of an open kind of two-way dialogue is, it's just, there are always going to be trolls. There are always going to be people who give you a hard time for any kind of mistake, no matter how small. But for the most part, the communities are, they're going to be, respectful and, just generally interested to understand why things were done the way they were and why they weren't. I think that's something that people crave as well, just understanding why something was done a certain way. It really helps you to, develop some empathy and understand, what people were aiming for. And it helps to build a community, I think. So that's me.
Cool. Baz, any other thoughts?
I mean, we had a podcast and we complained that there wasn't enough news, and immediately Brad and Tyler wrote up an article. I think that's fantastic, and we need to encourage this. Yeah. But seriously, like, a lot of the community was saying that they hadn't had any word, that we needed a little bit more communication, and it does kind of look a bit rushed, but they did put together something. They wrote up something and got it out there. It's not exactly what we're looking for, but I think it's to be commended. I wholeheartedly encourage them to write more. A couple of things we did get out of it is we'd always kind of known that a couple of designers had moved on, but now we got confirmation that we're looking at Brad and Tyler, which is great. We know who we're dealing with. And I seriously hope that they they write more, and that Brad takes Enigmatic Magistrate out of his deck and never talks about that card ever again.
I mean, the thing is, like, we're behind those guys. We want those guys to succeed, and be the best designers they can be, and design the best game that they can design. Everybody's in it together. So there's, I don't know. I mean, I've been there myself, and I've been in the same situation, and articles like that always wreak a little bit of, well, actually more than a little bit. They wreak a lot of fear. But there's really no reason to be afraid. There's really no reason to be afraid.
Be afraid.
So,
be very afraid. Justin's coming for you.
Oh yeah. That'll scare him. But yeah, as I said, we're all in this together. So if everybody just kind of understands that and realizes that, then you can create a much more positive and constructive kind of environment for discussing the game and where it's going and how it should be improved. And that's all. And that's what everybody wants. So you realize that, and all of a sudden the solution and the problem, like the solutions become easier, and the problems don't seem nearly as big. So as Baz said, I'm super happy to see them writing stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to take that quote of yours, Justin, and I'm going to post it on the Facebook group and see how they react. We need to be super positive. We're all in this together. Yeah, one harmonious environment.
I'm not on that group, so
former mod of that group.
Yeah, the slings and arrows. Just too time draining. Too much PTSD.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah.
It's because you joined the alternate Facebook L5 group. The L5 unplugged.
The hell I have.
All right. So I think that kind of I think we can probably wrap out there. Andy will be delighted to hear that's like about an hour. We won't keep him up too late this time.
I can't complain too much.
We should probably mention the other rumor that's been swirling around, that the restricted list may be released sometime this week.
Oh, that's right.
There are rumors of probably tonight. There are rumors of a restricted list swirling around. So if that's the case, that's going to be super interesting to see, and I'm really fascinated to. Yeah, I mean, does the game need it? I think it actually might. But yeah, anyway, it's just a rumor. So, we've got Travis going, what? So maybe not.
Yeah, if Travis doesn't have the inside scoop.
False, Travis, tell us. Yeah, all I can say, I mean, I've just heard rumors from a couple of different people who've contacted me and just said, have you heard the rumors about the restricted list coming? So, I don't know. Maybe it is purely a rumor. Maybe there's a restricted list coming. Who knows?
I haven't heard any rumors, but I've been trying to actively spread them, so I'm not sure if they're the same ones getting back to you.
So the Chinese whispers, the circle is complete.
It's kind of an interesting topic. What would you want to see from a restricted list?
Well, more importantly, how would you do a restricted list?
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
They don't even have a collected list of errata for all of the rulings on the cards. So
what? They're all perfect. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, just Travis in chat is saying he'd heard about one maybe being around for Worlds, but not now. Travis usually has his fingers on the pulse. So
yeah.
But even so, that's not that far away. That's only like 6, 7, maybe 8 months. It's nothing. Blink of an eye.
So, like the classic is restricted and banned list. So you have banned list are all the cards that you just don't have, and then restricted are you can only pick one card from the restricted list to put in your deck. Now, if Scorpion are the target, which 2 Scorpion cards, or which 2 cards in the current Scorpion deck do you pick? Or do you even go down that route? Do you go a completely different direction? Because my big fear is that you say you restrict Let Go and Miramoto's Fury because they're both in the Scorpion deck, and then Dragon Bear's like
they're not the problem cards. I mean, the problem cards are probably the cancellation.
Miramoto's Fury is kind of a problems card. It's kind of a problem card.
It's not in the grand scheme of things. I don't think it is. I think you probably want them to be packing one or the other. see his face. You're one or the other of the big dogs, like let's say Fate Worse Than Death or Kachiko, or I don't know, one of the things that really
it's Forged Edict. Forged Edict is absolutely the card you hit.
Probably.
All right. So if you restrict Forged Edict,
this is going to get angry and bitter really soon.
No, but I said the cancellation cards at the beginning as well. That was
absolutely. I agree.
But the thing is, if you put Forged Edict on a restricted list, what else do you put on the restricted list? Because you're still going to play Forged Edict. It's the second worst card you're going to get them to stop playing, not the worst card.
Maybe policy debate.
So you put in.
I think that's such a warping card to have that one, because
Miramoto's Fury.
It gives you so much information in policy debate.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's like that's a really serious puzzle, because you have to sit down and take a look at all the deck lists. You have to take a look at what's doing well, what's not doing well. You have to make sure that you're taking apart the decks that are doing really, really well, while hopefully not completely disemboweling the decks that aren't doing all that well.
Yeah.
Because we've seen in a lot of different games before where they ban the immediate problem cards, and the gap at the top just gets wider because the card, like the clans in the second tier, have had any chance of answering the question, or the questions posed completely wiped out. Yeah. But yeah, it's a really difficult one. I mean, I'm not necessarily sure you nerf it by clan. Maybe look at nerfing it by dynamic. So again, like easy cheap cancellation. I get the absolute policy debate would absolutely fall into that, because it gives you information, it gives you preemptive cancellation.
Yeah. The
cost is usually not that high. It's a monstrously good card. But there are probably cards from every clan that you could put on that list. I mean, with Phoenix, because when you think about the cards that when you are playing, what cards get taken out of your hand by policy debate most often? With Phoenix, I would say it is Against the Waves. Actually, would be probably the card that might get restricted for Phoenix. But but at the same time, then you have to look at clans like Lion.
Absolutely. Where
their conflict deck is support. Is really just support for the incredible power of their dynasty deck. Like their dynasty deck is where everything that's where everything takes place. So like, do you put dynasty cards on the restricted list?
Travis is suggesting some really good ideas there.
Yeah, but Lion's Pride Brawler.
Lion's Pride Brawler
and Spirit Caller. You can have one other.
Oof, rough. You could also say, yeah.
But Lion are unicorn tier right now.
They are actually. That would be a real kick in the teeth.
Yeah, but the thing is, obviously, but the thing is but a restricted list also has to be part of a holistic
yes, that's
thing as well, where even if a clan gets taken down a peg, if cards are coming to bolster them, then maybe that's fine. But really, you're sculpting an environment the whole time, and that's really what a restricted list should be about. It should be about curbing the worst excesses of the game, because again, go ahead.
Actually, I'm a little bit skeptical about their ability to maintain such a list, and to implement such a holistic strategy for maintaining that list. I don't think they haven't shown me, at least, signs that they have enough of a handle on the game and the organized play aspect of the game to really make quick decisions, or to make to have a living document. Basically, they've seemed very reluctant to have any kind of a living document that was subject to change.
Jumping to defense just for a second, just to defend FFG for a second. The game is completely new. We know that it was developed under a really, really difficult time, like a really, really difficult deadline. And I think we've seen the problems that have arisen from that. But by the same token, I don't think we can hoist the designers because of that. Because they are only human. They were working under extreme deadline pressure, and the game is completely new. Like, a game like this with its very specific mechanics has not existed before.
Yeah.
As similar as it is to previous designs, it is also its own beast. And so, understanding the game, like really understanding the deep fundamentals of the game, that it takes time. It takes time, and as much as you can have tens or dozens of play testers who will put in hundreds of hours of play testing.
It's never enough. Enough.
It never is. It never is. And then it gets released to the general public, and all of a sudden you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of hours being put into it, millions of hours potentially. And all of a sudden,
This is a game where, to actually learn it, the recommendation is to play 10 games before you even have an idea how to play your 11th game. And that's basically an hour each.
Oh, not at the start, it isn't.
It's at least 2 hours.
You're probably looking at 15 or 20 hours invested. Probably 15 hours before you actually start to really understand what's even going on.
There is actually even a bigger gap again between the top level players and, I would say, players like us. Like, we have played enough to be comfortable with the game to be able to feel like we're relatively good at it. But I think players like Jacob were playing we're playing like 500 games on Jigoku in preparation for the Paris Kodai, or so were the rumors I was hearing. There are players that are well above the pack and are just putting in the practice and putting in the time to get used to the situations. And it's a difficult task for FFG to be able to fully balance that, because I think the game is very complex. Complex. Damn it!
Complex.
Watch the first episode again. It's very complex. It takes a while to fully grasp, and I think there's a lot of nuances that we're still only kind of getting to grips with. I mean, that Pro Top deck was a completely different style of play, and the current approach to beat it seems to be a style of play that is different again, and is non-intuitive to even what you would call competitive players. But I would have concerns about the amount of extra workload that it's going to put on the FFG guys to put together a restricted list. I would be happier if they were doing a better job of updated the rules document. I think there's constantly things that could be added to that, and that's an ongoing thing. So they've put it up, which is great, and then they've updated it. They had one small update straight away, and then another update recently enough. But there's more they could be doing on that. To add another document, and then the amount of testing that would need to go in on top of the normal card design to actually put a restricted list into play properly. They could do it. They definitely could do it. But I would certainly like them to have a timeline for the next update to kind of have all that locked in, and then account for it and make sure that they are aware of how much work it's going to do. But then the flip side is, if they don't do something like this, we might have what Andy was talking about. If the environment gets stuck with Scorpion at top for 6 months, people may stop playing. Just kind of fade away and wait for things to change. And I know with the other LCGs, if you get into a situation where you have you've stopped picking up the packs, you're probably not going to pick up more after a while. So,
yeah, they've got to be very careful. But the thing is, like, I don't want to roast any of the designers on this one. I think what they've done is they've. Ooh, have I been dropped, or has Baz been dropped?
I think Baz has been dropped.
Okay, I think what they've done is
he just mic dropped.
I'm out. They've put themselves in a little bit of a strange, like a self-imposed box, because, like Baz is saying, they haven't really made very many updates to the rules document. They haven't really shown that they're willing to make big changes. They haven't even they haven't even alluded to any thought about changing the fact that going second is such a huge advantage. Because that was one of the questions I think posed by John recently, John Butler, is that, okay, what are you going to do about this? It's been very clear that going second provides a significant advantage. What is being thought of to sort of countermand this? And we get no response. We get no like deep thought or any influence or anything from anywhere that says, okay, we're looking at this, we're thinking about changes, and maybe they are. I'm sure they are. But the dialogue's not there. We're not getting any updates to either the list of cards that are their proper rulings and printings and whatever it is. We're not getting anything to do with rules changes. We're not getting any floor rules changes. I'm a little bit skeptical.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Baz, did you get back?
I did.
Excellent.
Hopefully, I didn't cut off mid rant. If I did, it's probably for the best.
You got your rant out.
That was perfect.
Then mic drop.
Good.
And then read my overlays. Sure.
Yay!
So I think we can probably wrap up there. The last most important thing: we don't have an Owen, but we do have a Beaver fact. Baz, do you want to hit us up?
Let me pull it up here. So the big thing that I discovered about beavers is they are actually expert tree surgeons. So they will fell a particular tree for particular reasons. So a large mature tree will be felled for the start of a dam, whereas they'll go for the younger trees to fell them for food. And they will actively cut down trees that are stopping the undergrowth from growing, so that they can essentially make sure that the food that they're looking for will be nice and handy.
Pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, those animals.
Beavers. Badass beavers. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, guys, for showing. Thanks for chatting, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take it easy, everybody. Bye.